Okay, we're going to demonstrate visually what we talked about in the webinar about how the history of muscle testing has gone. We use it to draw information from the body, and this has been done for about 100 years, doing various forms of manual muscle testing and then muscle response testing, and now what we use, which is a modified muscle response test. So we'll talk about each of those throughout the last 100 years, beginning with W.R. Lovett, who published the very first paper in a peer-reviewed journal regarding the efficacy of using manual muscle testing to find innervation lost in nerve roots. So an example of that would be, still use it to this day, we have all these different nerves that come out in the cervical spine. And each nerve goes to a certain muscle that can be isolated, and that isolated muscle can be tested for strength. So Sydney has agreed to let us use her muscles to demonstrate strength. So we're going to start with the left side. We know, we've already tested her, we know that the C6 nerve root is going to be a little bit weak. So we're going to start with C4 nerve root. This is biceps. And lock that please. Okay, that's good and strong. Okay, C5 would be the wrist extensors. So we're going to push against wrist extensors, good lock on that one. And we're going to take and C6 nerve root, we already found out, gives a bit. So there's where she's got her irritated nerve in her neck that's bothering her today. Okay, C7 is a grip pulled this direction. This is the C7 nerve root. Okay, then we have the T1 nerve root, and that's prehensile grip. So can she hold her finger and thumb together? And very good. So we know that Sydney is going to need a C6 adjustment. And we will do that later for her. Okay, but later on, they found that muscle testing had value, especially with polio patients. They wanted to be able to grade the amount of damage done by poliomyelitis on muscle strength. And so they came up with a system of grading muscle strength. So we'll go from strong to weak. Now a strong muscle is a solid lock. This would be a grade 5. Okay, grade 4 against resistance will give a bit. This is grade 4, example of grade 4. Okay, grade 3 against gravity, she can hold her arm up, but a little bit of pressure, grade 3, the arm will drop. So that's a grade 3. Grade 2 can't even be held up against gravity. So if I put her arm up there, it will give way. So that would be a grade 2 muscle strength test. Grade 1, with her arm hanging at her side, there would be a little bit of fasciculation or movement. And grade 0 would be nothing. Her arm would be totally paralyzed. You could flop it around and she wouldn't be able to do anything about it. So that's the muscle grading system that the medical profession still uses to this day, and they've got very rigid rules about how this is applied. Then we're going to move on to Dr. Goodhart, and Dr. Goodhart used muscle testing to correlate organ dysfunction. And so a good example that we already checked on Sydney, we know that she had a bit of Thanksgiving turkey and gravy yesterday. We're getting a little reading on her gallbladder today. So this is the anterior deltoid muscle, which on this side is not an indicator of gallbladder. It's really solid. But if we come to the other side and try to test the anterior deltoid muscle here, that goes weak, indicating the gallbladder needs some attention. So we're going to attend to her gallbladder in a bit. Okay, so that is a form of muscle response testing. And so the next example, as we went through history, Dr. Versendahl, from my experience, used just a single muscle to test acupuncture points and different reflex points for energy. And so a strong muscle would lose its lock if you touched over his polarity point right here. So he also used acknowledged positive and negative energy. So positive energy would be strong, but if you turned it around, negative energy would go weak. And then he used various acupuncture points, and if you lost the lock over those acupuncture points, he had nutritional protocols that he would use for that. The next, in my experience, was Dr. Klinghardt, who had autonomic response, or has autonomic response testing, and he uses the energy over the navel to acknowledge a regulation in the nervous system, an upregulation and downregulation. So if Sydney locks her muscle and I come over her navel, she will lose the lock. Okay, so then moving on from this, we discovered a few years ago that you could test energy off the field. And it was actually Autumn's idea. She came up with the idea of using virtual energies of different cellular nucleic proteins, and we combined them in different ways so that we didn't do any more body response testing over the body. We did testing in what we call the morphogenic field, or outside the body. So this is a product from Standard Process, Simplex M, and it is used for male endocrine support. So Sydney not being a male, her field will reject this energy. So we start out here and bring it into her morphogenic field where she loses her lock. Okay, then we measure the field. So her field is approximately 1.5 feet from her body right now, and we'd like the field to be 4 to 5 feet. So later on, we're going to demonstrate testing Sydney to find out how we're going to expand her field. So, thank you very much. Thank you, Sydney. Oh.